not speaking, that would be great. Joy, are folks having trouble just connecting or forgot
No,
the
it's
link
just
or something?
they didn't remember where the link was. So
Okay. Okay, good.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, we still have people coming in. Okay.
Joy, if there's somebody specifically that's having trouble getting in, if you go to the lobby, there's a slot where you can actually invite someone. So you could put their email in there, maybe. I don't know, Josh, does that work?
Not sure
Looks
if
like,
I've tried it, but I think they changed it recently. So
oh,
we
okay.
could, but we could certainly give it a spin.
Okay, it looks like people are coming in, so I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we should probably, in the interest of everybody's time, get started. And we still have a few introductions and things, so as folks come in, they won't be missing too much. So welcome to our Vermont Department of Libraries meetup. I am Jeanette Schaefer. I'm the Assistant State Librarian for Library Advancement. And I am glad that so many of you were able to join us today. And wanted also to thank our team for being here, and also Gary Desiel, our special guest, who is our UVM extension partner. Gary and VTLIB team, if you could put in the chat, just introduce yourselves. That way we can kind of move right on and save some time. So we've been really impressed with the way that libraries have been able to respond to this recent increase in COVID cases and adapt your services once again, creatively and empathetically. And because each day brings new scenarios and curveballs, we thought we would provide a platform for you to not only hear from us, and ask questions, but also to hear from each other. So for today, it's going to be a pretty unstructured program, if you will. We'll have State Librarian Jason Broughton give a brief update. Then Josh Muse will just talk you through really briefly on how to update your service levels in the data, the status log. And then we'll just open it up to questions that you might have and conversation. So hopefully we can answer as many of your questions as possible. And if not, we will definitely keep track of those questions and respond to you after. So a little typical etiquette, please use the chat to pose your questions if you can. If you're calling in, we'll give you a chance to ask your questions via voice. Please keep yourself muted. If you are calling, you can use *6. And for those of you who are using the web version, you can also raise your hand if you want to use your voice to ask questions. And we are already recording, so I don't have to remind my colleagues to hit the record button. So Jason, are you ready to take it away?
Good afternoon. Yes, I believe I am. So hello, everyone. My name is Jason Broughton, your state librarian and commissioner for the Vermont Department of Libraries, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to come to our meetup today to discuss a little bit of status updates and answer any of your questions. We did this a lot in the spring, and everyone let us know that it was very effective in providing timely information along with answering questions because of the nuances and unexpected events that could occur. Today, it's going to be a little bit more structured and in the sense of me providing you with some very unique updates, but then allowing more time to flesh those things out toward the end of our meetup today. So I'll just kind of jump into where things stand on a variety of different aspects that are important for your awareness. The first thing that I want to kind of make sure that everybody has, and I'll put this in the chat, if you are using the phone app, I'm sorry, you will just we will give you the links afterwards. But the first thing that we should all be able to continuously make sure we understand is the progress of where COVID is impacting our state as it continues to now have an uptick. I will always, and continue to do so, send you what we receive from state government to all state employees. I send that out every day, except for the weekends as they continue to compile it. But if you would like to see things as they are in real time, you may, and just putting in the chat, click on the Vermont Department of Health's daily dashboard. And that should let you know, unfortunately for today, just like yesterday, we are now at 146 cases, so just 2 down from yesterday with 1 death. You will also be able to see a variety of bits of information, particularly on how the counties are doing. So with that being said, it appears Washington County is no longer first as the county of lead, unfortunately, with COVID, and it is now back to Chittenden County with the most number of cases at this moment, but Washington County is a number 2. This should hopefully be very, very helpful to you as it allows you to understand what's impacting your area and how you can make some quick adjustments or be flexible. We deeply appreciate seeing on the listserv that people have constantly and continuously been flexible since the beginning, and our goal is to ensure that you have that to continue to do. One specific thing, as per myself being a Senate cabinet member in talks with the governor, is to ensure, I know that's not going to sound very happy, or for people who are at least trying to do something, it is requested and required per executive order that people from different households not gather together for Thanksgiving. In fact, there is a quest to now not have travel for Thanksgiving, which will, yes, make a variety of us unhappy. We hope that the emotional and the mental capacities of those 2 things being asked do not cause deterioration, as we need to examine what will occur over the next 14 days. So that is the first when it comes to just kind of understanding where you can quickly get COVID information. Another item that is very specific to understand, unless, of course, we are not able to break the cycle, what we need is the actual executive order itself. A lot of people might have heard of it or hear bits and pieces of it. I am again placing that into the chat so that you actually have the official state of Vermont order per the governor. And it has quite a few things that are very, very specific that allows people to see what the true wording is. So that will give us some things to talk about, because I know some of the topics are going to be important. I will say first and foremost, one of the most important things that is requested to the greatest extent possible, and we will discuss this toward the end, you will notice that in the order it does ask all entities, nonprofit, for-profit, and government, to utilize telework to the highest extent possible. We will talk about the nuances of that for libraries toward the end. Another aspect that is very helpful and very timely, again, letting people know how important it is with the ever-changing item and our fiscal impact, is to make sure that you connect with, as you are helping any of the Vermonters and residents if needed, with the Vermont Department of Labor, particularly when it comes to filing for unemployment insurance. In looking at that, I'm going to also paste in the unemployment rate, which is going down, but if you understand labor market information, on one level that's nice, but it's actually not. There's a group of people in our state who have actually exhausted all benefits and have stopped looking for work. So of course the rate will be going down. We also have food insecurity that is becoming a major concern. And so those types of items are going to be very, very unique in trying to navigate this new situation and how we will be navigating our futures. With that, I will then move into the expectations of what we are preparing for. We expect, per my understanding and conversations with AOA and the governor's office, for us to all prepare for the long haul. The department will be teleworking, but we do have in-house staff to do items all the way until March of this year, and then we will re-examine what will occur. So that should give you an indication that you should be prepared to consider the actions at current, specifically up until March. We don't know what the fiscal situation will look like for us. There is an expectation that people will be examining the month of December to see if there's any tourists, which we know are not at the current moment allowed to come in and us to kind of go out. but what spending looks like. So we are examining all of these different types of things because the year for 2021 is going to be a year of transition. I'm asking that all of us, yes, have hopes, but pay keen attention to not placing too much of an expectation on things returning to normal until about 2022. We have a vaccine that must be created, effectively distributed over a year, and in addition to that, we will still have to continue to do these types of items. There is an assumption that once you take a vaccine, I can go back to living my life. No, we will still be having to wear a mask, socially distance, even with a vaccine. Now, you might say, that's crazy. We're librarians. Go look it up. It'll take a year to get us to slowly build ourselves back up. So, here at our department, we have tasked ourselves with examining what the year of transition, 2021, all of it will look like for the future. We are charting our course for 2022 to begin to see normalcy. All of our items, as the consultants will tell you, will go into virtual mode with the possibility of maybe in the fall there might be an opportunity to do something in person. But again, we're not putting our expectations in all in one basket. This is a short amended version of my update. With that, I will now turn it over back to Jeanette, and we will continue forward and begin to have open dialogue on any of your questions or how we can assist toward the end of our presentation today. Jeanette, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Josh, do you want to talk about the logs really quickly?
Yes, absolutely. So this is just thanks to everybody who has submitted a library services and status survey, have updated their information. I know there's a lot of things moving very fast. We had a few libraries that were opening at the same time as others have been closing or shifting down levels. So just if you have a change, please either fill out the survey or email me, and we can get that in there. And the survey, the information is really only as useful as it is if it's accurate, so other people can use it to make their own decisions for their libraries. So people have been doing a great job, and I really appreciate their efforts. I know there's a lot of things going on, so I appreciate every time you fill that out. But keep doing that, and if you have a question about it or any issues, get in touch with me.
Thank you, Josh. And we hear from everybody how useful this updated information is, and how much folks use that information from the logs to just decide what their service level will be. It's just another piece in the puzzle. So I appreciate you submitting that information as well. So why don't we open it up for questions, comments, anything?
Jeanette, I did have one
about?
thing. I
Yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead,
let
Jason.
Gary just give a few updates or some tips by way of his understanding when it comes to finance and HR to libraries at this moment as we transition once again to the hunker down period for the next about 2 to 3 months. Gary, would you like to say something about fiscal acuity or HR topics for a quick moment?
Boy, that's a wide field. I'm of course here to answer or help answer any questions with the Vermont Library staff. From a financial perspective, I think it's quite specific to your situation. I, for instance, am a trustee in Georgia. We're fortunate to have what we believe to be strong property tax receipt returns. Just kind of holding on. We have a couple of budget scenarios which we've developed. So from a budgeting perspective, just off the top of my head, you really can't look backwards too far. I mean, and I really appreciated Jason's comments just now, because he was talking about, the realism, no magical thinking here. Into the next year, we're facing pretty much kind of the same thing, and we're going to be making our way through that little by little. So looking at budgets now, and I know that fiscal years vary, but just being in constant communication with your funders, with the town, with paying attention to endowments and other things, just be very, very, I think, thinking about expenses, looking under every rock, knowing that you're shifting some expenses to supplies because you've had to spend a lot more money on plexiglass, on cleaning, on this and that. So from a fiscal perspective, I would say, think about your expenses, think about what you're spending, and pay attention and keep up to date on what's being spent. From an HR perspective, boy, right now it's all again continuing about community and about communication. That if you are a director, if you're a leader and you have staff, just be in constant communication with them. And you know, people need empathy, they need support. But I'm also here along with staff that I'm looking at from Vermont Libraries. If you have specific questions about personnel policies, about how something might, you know, intersect with the ADA, any of those questions. So Jason, I'm sorry for being so vague, but that's I'm landing.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover there. Thank you, Gary. Okay, so we
Thank
have
you.
questions rolling in, and please bear with us as we address them. So Janet, you asked about the issue of contact tracing for patrons. Yes, let's talk about that because we have just received some updated information from, and I'm looking over on my other screen because I want to get this right. I'm going to read it to you. So we heard from ACCD Deputy Secretary Ted Brady about this because we asked him for clarification. So he says that any library that is open to customers and allows customers to use the library for any duration of time besides curbside pickup should maintain a contact tracing log. So we got clarification on that. So what that means for you all is when you assess your service levels and whether or not you decide to let people come in, if you do decide to let people come in, you need to start contact tracing and keep a log of the people that do enter the library. So that is another piece of the information puzzle that will help you decide what your service level will be. And yeah, that's all I can say to that right now, but I'm sure there are more questions and we can post the what the exact rules are for the contact tracing log. Okay, I can post something, Marika, hang on one second.
Actually, Jeanette, I put that if people scroll back, the executive order by the governor has all of that in it, specifically how the contact log, what it must entail. And I do want to make sure that we all understand, because I know people are going to say, oh, well, we just talked about privacy. Laura and Jeanette can discuss that piece of this because we haven't broached that subject. The highest thing I will say again, starting with number one, it is required to the fullest extent possible, per the executive order, to have all entities of the state within Vermont do telework to their best extent possible, followed by, if you have employees coming into the building as required, you're to have a health log for your employees no matter what. No matter what. Followed by who is your health officer, whether it be a library person or you work with your municipality to do so. If you do curbside, you still again must have a health log and again a health officer. If you choose to open your library, here's where it becomes more interesting. You will need to decide if you are going to be in compliance because your request is to be compliant per the state of Vermont, which means if you open, you're going to have a health log. Now let's go into the question on privacy and a health log. I'll turn it now back to Jeanette and Laura for discussion.
Okay, I will hand off the privacy question to Laura because she has been answering this. But before we do that, let me just answer some of the specific questions here. So Janet, you have asked if you need to notify patrons of any potential exposure. No, that the tracing log is intended for when, if you get a call from contact tracers, so that they
VDH.
know whom to call. Yes, they will call. So you don't have to take care of that. May you alert people that their name will be placed on a log? Yes, you will probably have them sign in when they come in, and you are welcome to tell them that you're only keeping this for 30 days and for the purposes of contract tracing only. This list is in your possession. You need to keep it safe and then destroy it after 30 days. So just keep that in mind.
One update too. Again, per VDH and per the governor, it is requested that people please, please, please participate with the contact tracers. In the library community, we might find that a bit kind of like, what do you mean by that? You should know that there are people who are happy to tell the contact tracers that they were at a party and maybe they are infected. They will not do anything more than that, which means they won't say where they exactly were at, who was with them, and the like. So again, in the executive order, it asks that you please comply with the questions of the contact tracers should a person be called. You might find that that's a bit unsavory for some of us who are residents and Vermonters, but there are people who do not feel they wish to give more other than thank you for letting me know I'm sick, and they hang up. That is per the Department of Health asking for people to please, 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 when contacted by them, please participate.
Okay, Laura, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. I'm not sure. I think we covered most of it. And I do realize I want to be really sensitive to people that up to this point, we've been telling people that they're to be careful about this. And so that's why we wanted to get some real clarity from ACCD for you guys on of the governor. It is out there that the libraries need to be doing this. And so we really, like both Jeanette and Jason said, we really want you guys to bring this to your trustees and really consider if anyone comes into your building, well, anyone who comes into your building needs to go into this contact log, be it employees, be it volunteers, be it patrons for any length of time. And for you guys to really keep this log safe and only in the patron privacy law, it does say if, I can't remember the wording exactly, but if there's some force of law that says you need to hand something like this over, then you work with that. And the governor's executive order does fall into that. So keep it safe. And I know this may make some folks uncomfortable. And so we do advise, as always, because we can't give legal advice, to connect with your library's lawyer to talk about this with your concerns.
Okay, and I'm sure there'll be more questions about that, but let's kind of chip away at the list a little bit. Somebody asked a question about the Wi-Fi grants that we had talked about, and I will read just for the benefit of folks who are calling in Josh's answer. So Sue, to answer your question about the Wi-Fi micro grants, that's on hold for the time being, as there's a possibility funds coming available before the end of the year. We'll be revisiting the microgrants in early 2021. So we are juggling a few different funding sources and are trying to get the most out of what might be available to us. So please bear with us as we kind of move all the bits and pieces around and try to situate everything in order to squeeze as much out of that as we can.
Jeanette, let's find out, Tom, did you just want to, because we really can't discuss it fully, anything you might want to hurt the library land about regarding that?
Yeah, I think in short, because none of this stuff is finalized, the only thing that's finalized is we will be doing that microgrant sometime, probably looking at February, March of next year. But before that, we'll have potentially some grants that we're very excited about that will be able to put some extremely useful equipment into libraries' hands in a broad way. So I think there could be some details coming out about that hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We may do a quick turnaround on the first grant, so just be aware that there's the potential for us to be able to get some good stuff for you, and some of that money has to be spent by the end of the year, so it might be a quick turnaround on that. But again, we're still working on this. We're almost there, but otherwise I'd tell you exactly what's going on. But just let me tell you, we're very excited about the possibilities at the Department of Libraries for what we're going to be able to get for you. So we're happy about the potential here.
Thank you. And I'm going to scroll up a little bit and look at some older questions. So, Josh, I don't know if you responded to Kimberly's question about where we get the most up-to-date logs, but I'm sure you will post it in the chat when you have a chance. And then Amy had a question about, she says, I'm interested in the nuances of the telework order Jason mentioned earlier. Jason, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I can. With the nuances, it depends on how you would like to do the setup. First, if you're able to do telework, because we know some of our libraries are not able to really do that. And again, a nuance would be if you can't and staff need to come in on offering virtual services or curbside, number one, you again need to have a health log for all employees and a health officer, either by the library staff or someone in the town who can assist you with that to keep that information going. I also want to kind of add in a chime here because someone put a question about, well, suppose my library is in a shared space with another office. If it's your municipality or town office, you definitely want to connect with them to find out how the setup is and see if it is comfortable for you. I would suggest don't take on any extra burdens that you don't have to. Life is already stressful as it is. And if you have a wonderful relationship with your town administrator or the mayor or how the setup is, you could let them take it over. And yes, you would check in with them as you come in, as you go. But again, this is only for employees. We're not talking about a contact log at this moment. This is only you and your library having your employees come in. Curbside, same way, just take your precautions. But if you plan to open, you're then going to still have to work out what does that mean. When it comes to telework, there are a variety of things that one can do. And when I say the nuances, the state of Vermont is really examining the stress that we are all experiencing. And believe it or not, when it comes to telework, you might find that you're actually doing even more work than in person. And that can weigh you down right now. So there are a variety of things when it comes to mental health and also emotional health to make sure that you pace yourself, that you don't bleed in, because I have this not as my own problem, but the nature of my job. The best example I would give you is there are people who I work with who start their morning at 5:30 sending me emails. And these aren't emails that are chat. These are emails that actually are demanding, they need items. And so I've had to adjust my schedule a little bit. Am I going to tell them stop? I can't. They're my bosses. The emails don't stop. They go into 8 and 9 o'clock at night because we're all under the situation. But with that, I strongly encourage you to try to help your staff to navigate these nuances, to have breaks, to try to turn technology off, to make sure you have a comfortable chair, that your setup is right for ergonomics as best you can. Take walks, rest, sleep, eat healthy. Stop driving to 802 every day at 9 o'clock in the morning to pick up alcohol first. Do that last. We all need to. But within that, the goal is to try to be as healthy and as well as you can, because it's going to be a long haul. So when I say the nuances, right now it's a bit of overload. Don't look so much at the news. Try to turn your email off when you can and take a breath away from it, because it's going to help you. Because again, this is in preparation of the daily monotony we are going to face until we get to the spring, when things will get a little bit better to be outside. Jeanette.
Yep, thank you. Janet, I will respond to you in a second. Lisa asked, what about a vestibule? It's not the library proper. You have to kind of figure out where that line is. If it's more of an outdoor space where you're just doing curbside, it probably isn't considered in your library where all the people are and where, you know, there's no airflow. But do also check with your municipality and, if needed, with your legal counsel as well. So again, a lot of this is up for interpretation when you're looking at these transitional spaces. So you just kind of have to assess as best you can what that means. Janet, so Janet has a really good question, because this does get confusing and we answer these questions all the time. Could you explain what the health log is comprised of, or direct us to a sample form online. I'm not sure if you're referring to that standard form where you ask people if they've had a fever, been exposed to anyone with COVID, etc. I may be confusing this with the contact tracing form. Yes, they are two separate things. So the health log is the staff log where you're really, and it may not be a log per se, but you are required to be able to demonstrate that you or your health officer, whoever your dedicated health person is, needs to know that before each shift, everybody is healthy enough to work and has not been exposed or out of state. And, that is the staff health check.
I just put that
And
into the chat as an example of what
yep,
we do. As Jeanette is
perfect.
continuing, know that for us, since I'm here every day, I get to walk to work nicely. My staff simply emails me these questions. They know what the questions are. They just copy and paste it. They answer it and they email it to me before they arrive. And I have it to say, thank you, you may now enter, because I'm always here. It's a quick, simple way, but in some cases, paper might be your best option if you need to do that.
And so Jason doesn't list that all in a spreadsheet or anything. He just has those emails as reference in case something happens and somebody needs to find out what happened that day. So that is the staff and volunteer log or health check. Then there's the contact tracing log, which really only has you have folks sign in with their contact information, and we posted what that is a little bit further up, so we can post that again. That has just their contact information, not how long they were in the library, whether they've traveled out of state, whether they're healthy to come in the building. This is just really purely for contact tracers to come and find out if there has been an exposure, how to get in touch with those people. So very distinct things. And I know it gets incredibly confusing when we're trying to keep track of everybody all over the place. Let me see if we have any other questions right now about that. Josh and team, if you're seeing anything we haven't responded to, just chime in as well. Janet, does that make sense? Okay, good. And don't hesitate to ask, even, if next week, Tuesday morning, you're trying to figure this out and you forgot the difference or whatever, please ask, because we spend hours trying to figure this out and tease it apart and find the right answers. So, this is what we live and breathe. You don't necessarily live and breathe it all the time, so. Okay, any additional questions? Marie, with winter wind and snow, I don't know how many of us could do curbside without using a vestibule enclosed space. Yep, that makes total sense, to have to kind of put it somewhere in a building or in a covered space. Again, you have to decide for yourself if that constitutes, just coming into a vestibule to pick up a bag is very different from coming into the library to talk to people in a very enclosed space. So that's how I would look at that. And Laura, Joy, everybody who's kind of tried to wrap their arms around the guidance, if you could chime in as well, what your thoughts are on that.
This is Laura. Yeah, I would encourage everyone, because every building is so incredibly different, and all of your setups are really different, and so that can make things really challenging. And I encourage you to work with your trustees and your staff and your stakeholders to figure out what is the least contact-y way that you can facilitate transfer on some sort of curbside. If that's bringing stuff out to people, or if it's putting it in a big plastic tote outside, or what it is, each of you will have a solution that works for your space.
Yeah, I love the idea. Catherine said, we've been thinking about a small book shed in the parking lot. Maybe we could design a few sizes for all libraries. I can just see that all over Pinterest as the book sheds of Vermont. So get your saws out this weekend. That's a wonderful idea. And I'd like to open it up to folks who are calling in to maybe unmute themselves to ask questions. *6 is the unmute mute. Okay, hearing no questions and seeing none that I don't think we've answered, are there any other things the team thinks update folks on as well?
Yes,
You
are
want to
there any
chime in?
things for youth or training, IT? We do appreciate everyone continuously updating their status. That is reported to ACCD and the governor's office. So we also, again, deeply appreciate you helping us make sure that we can have informative information be given back to you within that. We also are very, very happy and humbled of your conversations on the listservs regarding people being very thoughtful on saying, well, here's what we're going to do, and it looks like it's best to go to curbside. And I am, again, very humble that so many of you are offering free services, particularly for printing or trying to find a way to allow Vermonters to do that. I've had a lot of librarians over the past few months tell me of stories of people who were a little upset in some cases that they could not do those types of things because, yes, how are you going to apply for unemployment or fill out for food insecurity or forms when the library is closed, and that is one of your strongest ways to do that. So we are extremely humble that you are trying to find ways to make sure that your community has some form of a connection, and we know this is not easy. Believe me, we know. And as Tom said, Tom and Josh are working on something that we think a lot of you will hopefully be thrilled about in the coming weeks. And we are just really, really happy we were able to get this thing started. But I'll be quiet on that. And again, thank you so much for all that you do. The team, any updates?
Yeah, we actually have a few questions roll in the meantime. So Lauren, can you give us an idea of what in-building and remote looks like at VTLIB? Yes. So Able Library is fully operational. Well, we're not open to the public, but the Able staff is there and they're tag teaming, as is the rest of the team. So anybody who has to be in the physical spaces just to process things there is tag teaming. So we're alternating in order to be compliant with the spacing. And as we need to come in occasionally, the rest of us are pretty much remote, but whenever we do need to come into the building, we make sure we arrange the schedules with everybody else so that we're not all there at the same time. And Tom, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, various members of the Department of Libraries have been on camera today. You can see that I'm working at home. Laura's working at home, Jeanette. There's one person who's always in the office.
Yes, I know. I know.
He's holding down the fort every day. So those of you who are going into your library, you should know Jason is in our office every single day. He's the one who registers the log, which we've been doing since, gosh, I want to say March 17th.
March 3rd. We
March
had
3rd,
to
okay.
abandon our offices.
That's right.
like rats off a sinking boat.
Yep. So Jason is there in solidarity with all of you who are going into your libraries. So think of him.
I do want to just give a quick pivot to you, Tom, and to April if she wants to update the status because they asked about the Able Library. Anything on the courier that people should be cognizant or aware of?
Okay.
April's dog has something to say.
Yeah, he timed that really well. There's not really any updates on the courier. It's business as usual, and they are pretty sure they figured out where their weird backlog was happening. So that's been fixed. But yeah, no big changes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have actually a pretty heavy question there, a heady question for Gary from Catherine. Thoughts on balancing between workman's comp liability versus virus liability to go with one staff person in the library to keep curbside going? Ooh, that might even be beyond Gary. I know you know a lot, but this might be beyond you. So you let me know what you think.
Virus liability. So you mean like you've got one staff person? I mean, you know, I can imagine it. So smaller libraries, just sometimes there's only one person, and I would go with safety for that staff person. I mean, if I'm reading it right, I would always default to the employee safety. Is that what I'm reading, or Jeanette? Or
Catherine, maybe you can do a follow-up there and explain a little more so we can better answer your question. Selena asked in the meantime, so don't go anywhere, Gary. In the meantime, Selena asks, our vestibule's ventilation system is connected to the rest of the library, so still part of the library if we let people in to pick up items. My guess, again, and you have to figure this out locally, but my guess is the doors are a little bit easier to keep open or keep a crack to get the air circulation. It's all about the air circulation too. So you might be able to mitigate that by having the doors open a little bit more. And then Janet, don't apologize for hogging the question box. We're glad you're asking. So Janet says, the current executive, but is the current executive order allowing libraries to make their own judgment calls on whether or how soon to close our doors as the next few weeks roll on? Okay, so yes, right now you are still allowed to make your own judgment call along with your municipality, your board, on what service level you're providing. The only thing that has changed now is if you are open for people to come into your library, you need to keep a log. Curbside is still the preferred method and has been all along, but that didn't necessarily work for everybody. So yeah, so you're not read yet, and until there is an executive order to shut libraries, you can still stay open. And I see Laura turn on her camera, so she probably has more to add.
Just to reiterate, I think what Jason's been saying since the beginning, that the governor last week made a really strong restatement of the fact that telework is to the greatest extent possible. So just weigh that as you're trying to figure out what your service level is. I think curbside has been preferred for months now, but now the governor has said, not only is that preferred, but you guys really need to telework to the greatest extent possible. So just keep that in mind.
I just unmuted myself. Thank you so much for answering these questions. Just your patience. I think for those of us who live in pretty tiny little town or work in like the Grand Isle Library, I feel like we're so remote, but it's easy to get complacent. I feel like because our numbers in Grand Isle are so small, right, you know, relatively low numbers compared to other parts of the state, but I hate to become too complacent and say, oh, we really are safe. So I'm really trying to guide myself with how much do I align myself with the libraries that are definitely in like central Vermont, southern Vermont, the ones that are really, they just shut down like right away. So I just want obviously my community to stay safe. So that's why it's a tough call sometimes when you're just a tiny little library with maybe 2 people coming in a day or something. So thank you though for helping with all these, answering my questions.
Yes, and it is always going to be a tough call because we're always weighing the wanting to provide the most service for our communities, and often that would involve them coming in. And we've seen that on the listserv today with all the copying and everything, and people need computers. But again, we also have to weigh that with really as a community keeping each other safe. And you also have the benefit being a small library where you can limit it to one person coming in. So it's all of these factors that you can kind of add up to your list and say, okay, with your board, you can decide, okay, when we hit a certain threshold, we're going to close. And what that threshold should really be codified, if possible, in your COOP plan. Or if you don't have one yet, this might be a good time to start working on one, but just kind of map out what your threshold is and at what point you close down. So let me see, there was another question. Thanks, Janet. Catherine, okay, Catherine followed up. We usually have at least 2 people in the library, but to keep us safer from COVID exposure, we are considering going to 1 person and have procedures for making that work. So that means a balance between someone falling alone versus being less at risk of contracting COVID. Yeah. Gary, you turned your camera on. That means you want to talk. Go for it.
Because that's, Catherine explained the workers' comp versus the COVID-19. So, right, that explains it. And what it comes down to, I think there are a lot of libraries in very similar situations where you have 1 employee working there at a time. And definitely what you can do to mitigate, I suppose, is to make sure that if there's snow, there's, you've got supplies there, you've got salt. Sometimes accidents do happen, but to try to mitigate the circumstances so that accidents are less likely to happen, talk to the employee, make sure that protocols are in place if it snows, that there's shoveling being done, salt is being spread, that sort of thing. So it comes down to a judgment call on the part of the library director. It sounds like you're trying to keep safer for COVID-19. The governor wants us to telecommute as much as possible. Going to 1 person at a time seems like a, and just try to do your best in training that employee about safety. I don't know if anyone else has any comments. But.
Yeah, that's all reasonable. April, would you like to just give a quick summary of the ILL conversation that's happening here on the chat?
I can do that. I was asked if Priority was going to halt services or if interlibrary loan was going to shut down. And no, it's still up to individual libraries if they're going to offer interlibrary loan as a service to their patrons. We never shut down the interlibrary loan system, but the courier system was shut down for about 2 months, which actually coincided with transitioning from Green Mountain Messenger to Priority as well. But it was shut down because I think it was something around 90% of the libraries that were on the courier system and in the state had stopped their interlibrary loan and shut down the entire library. So I haven't seen any talk on the listservs of libraries closing down their interlibrary loan system. So I think everyone feels better prepared and has safety protocols and procedures in place. So unless something drastic happens, I don't anticipate that getting shut down. And Susan had asked if people were still participating in ILL via USPS when the courier was shut down, and there were a handful, but if it makes you feel better, there were less than 100 interlibrary loan requests in the month of April, and it was by about 8 libraries. So not a lot of places participated.
I think there might have even been a week where we had 3. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
0? I can't remember.
That less than 100
was
requests was the entire month of April, and at least 10 of those was us.
Yeah, we will always provide ILL service.
Yes.
The courier service, obviously, as April just explained, is dependent on actually customers. So, right. She did a better job of explaining it than I could. So there you go.
There is not. Marie just asked if there's a metric for courier to shut down. There is not. I have not heard anything from Priority about it being shut down. As far as I know, as long as they have space in their warehouse, they will keep holding things and they will deliver to the libraries that want them to.
Thank you, April. I want to give the caller inners another chance to pose their question. We're down to about 8 minutes. So if you want to unmute yourself, *6 and ask, you are welcome to. And for the others, keep posting those questions. They're really helpful for us to have as well, just to see where we need to, put our efforts and do research. Tom.
Catherine Goldsmith asks a question that I think April can answer about announcing your stopping of ILL. April, do you want to hop in on that?
Yes, I just posted in the chat. You don't actually need to announce that you're stopping ILL. You just have to put your holiday dates in Clover, and that way it will skip you automatically. If you do want to announce that you're stopping ILL, then the LIB ILL listserv is a good place to post that.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions, comments from anybody else? Yep. Marie Marie reminds everybody, plus submit to what I refer to as Josh's form. Everybody refers to it as Josh's form. So yes, Marie, thank you. Okay. Anybody out on the call that would like to chime in, ask questions? Okay, so we want to remind library directors and library managers that we have a summit coming up, and I'm going to post, actually, Laura, if you wouldn't mind posting it. We would like you to join us for this summit. It's coming up in December after the holiday, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I think. And please go ahead and register for that if you are interested in any of the sessions. We kind of restructured it a little differently this year just because everybody's so busy trying to just manage. And am I forgetting anything else, team, that we should let folks know about?
I don't think so. I think folks know you can continue to email us questions, and we love getting your questions, so please don't hesitate to reach out with questions or follow-up questions for this, or if questions come up over the weekend. I'll be working next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think we all will, or most of us will, so feel free to send us questions.
Yeah, and we understand it's all confusing and it's happening at such a pace that it's a little hard to kind of wrap your arms around, and it's hard for us to wrap our arms around what's happening, but we certainly can find the information for you and try to distill it as best we can. And the interpretation and the decisions are yours, but we can certainly help you with the information that you need to make your decisions. So I think, unless there are any final questions, I speak for the rest of the team. I believe that we wish you a happy Thanksgiving and maybe some downtime and time for reflection. Oh, wait, there's a question, Marie. Will you be sending out a strongly worded email with what has been shared today? Yes, strongly worded, as strongly as we possibly can. Yes, Marie.
And this is Jason. I'd like to end. Please, again, it's so important because my staff does know I try to tell them this. And Marie, you are right. Yes, directors should be setting the tone. In my case, as your commissioner, I am considered essential as a state officer. So I already know my role, particularly given AOA. So I'm a little bit different in that. But the health and wellness of yourself and your staff is important. And I cannot stress to the highest degree I can, it is so important that you take mental and emotional and physical health at this time as something that is important. I strongly urge you to get out as much as you can. I would also say we believe, unfortunately, that we will not have a lot of visitors to the state. So guess what that means? It means you might be able to do a staycation. You might be able to go skiing or sledding or tubing in places that you had not done so. I've already been invited to a few people, but it's now on a stop. We were going to do some winter hiking, my first time doing that, but we are not allowed to even do that at the current moment. So we'll see how it goes. But in essence, do as much self care in a healthy way that you can, because the goal is you're going to need to do that from time to time. This is like a holding pattern, and it's up to you to make sure that you can be around to help lead your staff, be there for each other as colleagues, and also just bring a little bit of sunshine. Smiling is free, and it really does help a lot of people. Anything else from the Department of Libraries? Gary, thank you for being on today. I don't know if you want to say anything to the library community. We will let you have the last word before we disembark for our weekend.
No, no, thank you, Jason. Other than Vermont Library staff are just so fantastic to work with, and I'm so lucky to work with the libraries across the state. So thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, well, if you have questions or we have follow-up for you, we will respond, and have a great weekend and have a wonderful Thanksgiving, whatever shape it might take this year. So talk to you soon. Bye.